I decided that actually I wanted to try something different. I had worked in education for 10 years. I lost my mother a few years ago. My daughter was born during COVID with 3 holes in her heart. So we had, we went through a little bit of sort of turmoil during that period, and I just decided that perhaps I wasn't getting the fulfillment that I wanted through the job that I was doing. And I spoke to my wife and sort of almost overnight decided to resign from my position as a vice principal with no plan. I had nothing set up. I had no idea about what running a business meant. When you work in public sector, you don't learn about business because you never need to. And so it took me about a year of doing a few little bits here and there, making a little bit of money here and there, because ultimately I had bills to pay and, a house and a family to look after. Last year I set up for working parents. And I sort of used my experience as a coach. I retrained as a coach. I used my experience working in education, and I support parents through coaching, and I also support workplaces in becoming more inclusive for their parents. And I'm sort of in the growth stage of that business. But the bit that you don't see about business is just how much selling you have to do. My life is a constant sell. And having worked in public sector, I've never had to sell anything in my life before. So I find myself, spending most of my waking hours on social media or sending emails or on the phone, just trying to get people, and that's not even speaking to people, by the way, that's just trying to get meetings with people. I have this service that I'd like to offer your organization. I think it will make your organization better. I think it will make your organization more inclusive. It will improve your attraction and retention rates, reduce your recruitment costs. All of that I put in my email. I send a nice little sales pitch. If I send 100 emails a day, 95 of those people won't even get back to me. So you draft this email, you personalize this email, 95 people don't get back to me. Of the 5 that get back to you, 4 say thanks very much, but we're okay, it's not a priority. And then 1 might say, we can have a meeting, I'm available in 3 weeks' time. You have a chat, let's do some work in 3 months' time. Sorry, it's delayed, we'll do some work in 6 months' time. So actually it's a constant battle when you try and start a business from the ground. So if that wasn't challenging enough, about 3 months ago, my wife and I decided to launch another business, which is Mixala Chai. So we take our own kind of history as British, Indian, Tanzanian people with immigrant stories and backgrounds, and we sort of combine the spices found in an Indian chai with Western flavors to create something we hope people like. That business is obviously very much in its infancy, but I'm trying to now grow 2 businesses. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is I really hope there are some budding entrepreneurs in this room. I really hope there are people that have ideas that they think can, and forgive the cliche, change the world, even if it's on a small scale to start with. But what you don't see perhaps out there online, and what you don't see all of these successful entrepreneurs telling you, is just how difficult and challenging that journey at the beginning really is. And I'm speaking to you honestly, because I am at that beginning stage of the journey. Although for working parents is about 8 months old, it's still not making a profit. Mixala Chai is 4 months old, that's not going to make a profit for some time. And of course there's always the risk in the back of your mind that businesses sometimes, do fail. They don't work out. There isn't a demand, or something about what you're offering isn't quite what people want. But that shouldn't stop anybody that's got an entrepreneurial spirit or an entrepreneurial mind. There are so many gaps out there, especially now, those of you that are sort of tech savvy, AI savvy, whatever it might be. There's so many gaps out there that need filling. And the one thing that I decided, when it comes to chai, we're not going up against Tetley and PG Tips, because firstly, our chai is much better than theirs, and secondly, we're targeting the premium market, whereas Tetley and PG targets the mass market. But we are going up against some established chai companies that are out there. We're entering a saturated market. So when we sat down and talked about it, we thought, what are we thinking entering a market that already has so many businesses in there? For working parents, what am I thinking entering a market where lots of diversity and inclusion businesses already exist? And obviously we're sitting on the day of the results of a general election yesterday. There is an anti-diversity and inclusion movement out there, isn't there? Where people feel that we shouldn't be employing diversity leads in the workplace. We shouldn't be worrying about diversity and inclusion. But when I look around this room, all I see is diversity and inclusion. And if the future is the people in this room, then we absolutely need to be looking after diversity and inclusion. And the services that we offer, I guess, are part of that. So I guess I'm happy to take some questions. But the parting message for me is, if you do feel that starting a business is for you, all I would say to you is put in as much research in advance of that as you possibly can. Understand the small things like how to register a business, how to find the best accountant. You know, how much should I be spending on my website? Do I need to spend thousands of pounds having a glamorous website that nobody's going to look at the beginning? Or can I make do with something basic that somebody on Upwork or Fiverr can design for me if I don't know how to do it? Understand how business mechanisms work. And then, as we're going through with Mixala Chai now, you know, you've got to start learning about fundraising and investing. You know, who are the right people to invest in your business? How much money do you need to raise? What do you need to raise that money for? What are you going to spend it on? And also, when it comes to business, you know, I'm not in a position where I'm paying myself a salary. I've been out of work for 2 years, and I'm not paying myself a salary. Thankfully, my wife is working. We're just about getting by. But of course, the ambition is very much there. The passion is very much there to grow not only one, but two businesses into something that we hope will be successful and will be able to offer, you know, the customer, the client, something of value and of benefit. So really embrace that entrepreneurial spirit. You know, I appreciate, you know, you've got really established organizations like Morgan Stanley that are always looking for new people. And some of you may think that actually getting the experience at those organizations is worthwhile, and I would say it probably is. But if you have something in your mind and you think you can put your passion to a business, you think you can pull together a few pounds or borrow a bit of money to get it started, then do it, would be my advice. Go for it. My philosophy is kind of, I'm not very risk averse, I'm a bit of a risk taker. And obviously when you take risks, sometimes they pay off nicely, sometimes they backfire. You've got to be prepared for that in the world of business. So far we're getting by. If at one point in the future I've got to say one business takes priority over the other, you've got to use your mind and think, okay, let's focus on one and let's not worry about the other. Yeah, look, I hope that was useful in just kind of summarizing what it means to start a business and what you see on social media. I spent the first 6 months of my business fascinated by all these big influencers on social media, thinking, my God, they're earning money just by sitting on the sofa. They've got money coming into their account. I can't even get a response to an email that I'm sending. But social media does that to you. It creates this environment that everybody is really succeeding and doing really well. And lots of people are, of course they are. But if you obsess over what other people are doing, you lose sight of your own business. You lose sight of your own philosophy, and you lose sight of your why. Your why should be the reason you're starting a business. And that why should be to make an impact, to make a difference, to make change. And of course, let's not ignore the fact that you want to make money as a result of that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So embrace that. And if you need to get off social media for a little while or stop following people that are always posting about how successful they are, then do that, because your mental health is obviously incredibly important as well. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely, yeah. I think we're at risk of the fire alarm going off shortly, but I think I've got some time for some questions if anybody does have, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking about entrepreneurship and the beginning stages of success when you open your own business. So if you can touch those two, there's the topic of the mindset at the beginning of the journey, because your mindset has to be very strong, and then you should have a very strong vision in order to keep going. Otherwise, small obstacles can make you give up on your own passion and your own dream. So if you can touch a little bit about the mindset that it takes at the beginning of the journey, so you can go through those tiny obstacles that will make you say, okay, maybe this is not for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is about mindset and how we can maintain a positive mindset when we're starting a business. I can tell you honestly that I have had more down days than I have had up days in this last year of starting a business. In fact, substantially more down days than up days. Sometimes I wake up and think, I don't know where the next pound is going to come from. I don't know where the next response to an email is going to come from. But from a mindset point of view, I always go back to my why. Why did I start these businesses in the first place? You know, and I've sort of written them down, I've got them pinned up in front of me, and they remind me that no matter how many down days that you have, no matter how many rejections that you face, because you're going to face plenty of rejections in business, no matter how many people ignore you, that doesn't mean you haven't got a good product. It doesn't mean you're not offering a good service. It just means you've got to persevere. So we've got to think with a growth mindset. That idea that actually every day I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. I'm going to be more determined than I was yesterday. And actually the services and the product that I'm offering, I know are good. I know I can make a difference. I've just got to convince people of the difference that I can make. So perseverance, resilience, all of these kind of buzzwords that I'm sure you hear a lot are incredibly important every single day that you wake up. 100% believe in yourself, absolutely. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. Your story was really inspiring. But as a startup, I do know that you have to have a lot of skills to be able to get your business started, in the infant stage. So you have to be the CFO, the CMO, the CEO at the same time. And also, you mentioned pitching to, businesses and brands to collaborate with you. And I must admit that is also a skill that needs to be learned. Pitch, writing of pitches and all of that. So how are you able to, learn this skill as a person to get started before you can, get people on board with you to actually launch your business?
Thank you. Shall we wait, or is it going to be loud? Yeah. So the question was about, understanding that you've got to be everything in a business: the CMO, the CFO, the CEO, and learning how to pitch. And the truth is, you do. So I very much am the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, the CSO, whatever you want to do. The key thing, and I didn't know any of that stuff when I started a business. Yeah. I didn't know any of that stuff when I started the businesses. I had no idea about money and about accountancy and about tax affairs. The crucial thing, the most important thing is you're going to be committed to learn. You've got to be committed to learn. There's lots of free courses out there. I mean, you can pay people, but if you've got a limited amount of money, you want to spend that on the business. But you can invest in yourself. There are free courses out there to learn the basics of accountancy, the basics of tax affairs, the basics of selling. I mean, I still think that I'm a pretty poor salesman because it's a weakness of mine. A lot of that comes down to my own imposter syndrome and sometimes a lack of belief in myself and my product. But I go back to that why every morning that I look at. Why have I done this? But yeah, it's about self-growth, always learning. And sometimes you do find people on social media that are worth following, that just give you inspirational messages, that might give you a tip or two about sales technique, pitching technique, marketing technique, and those things. So I would say be prepared to learn all the time. Every day should be about learning. Any other questions? Yeah.
Did you know from the beginning what sort of business you wanted to open, or have you tried and it didn't work?
Yeah, so the question was whether I knew what businesses I wanted to open from the beginning. The truth is no. So when I quit my job as a vice principal, I quit with no plan. I just quit because I think I was at a stage in life where I'd been through some grief. I wanted something different. I wanted to be in control of my own diary and my own family time. It took me about a year to work out that I've got some skill sets here. I've built up these skill sets in education, leadership skills. I've worked with parents. I trained to be a coach, so I thought I can put that together and create a service. So it sort of almost came organically to me, so I didn't have an idea. With the chai business, that was more my wife's idea. She came up with this creation of sort of blending the authentic spices that we have with Western flavors. So we're sort of bringing our cultures together. So no is the truth. I didn't have any sort of pre-plan about what I wanted to do. I just sort of almost made it up as I went along. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's always better to be planned. It's always better to have things written as a plan, but it didn't work out that way for me.
How would you go about networking to build your business, especially for your chai business?
Yeah, so the question is about how to go about networking. That's another weakness of mine that I've identified. I'm terrible at networking. When I go into environments that I'm not familiar with and people that I'm not familiar with, I shy away a lot, which is obviously not the purpose of networking. That imposter syndrome of mine comes up a lot. So I have, over the last 6 months or so, tried to get myself to more networking events. There are so many out there around the business world. There are networking events around certain communities. So I've gone into networking events in my own community, and business events. I think what COVID has done to a lot of us is it's made us very comfortable in our own environment, in our own bubble. I'm very comfortable in my home office. I can shut the door and stay there all day and just do what I need to do. but I realized that I had to get out there. So I looked up lots of networking events. I mean, LinkedIn, if you're not on LinkedIn, from a business point of view and employment point of view, that's really a place that you need to go to. So many events come up on LinkedIn that are both local and sort of, a bit wider. Now I'd probably say I get to 2 or 3 networking events a month that make me feel very uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And also, I'm learning to believe in my business more than I did 6 months ago. I'm learning to believe that I actually have something to offer. Before, I used to be a bit embarrassed when all these big shots talk about how successful they are, and here's me not making any money. I'm beginning to believe in my business now. I'm beginning to believe in myself much more, and therefore I'm naturally becoming better at selling what I offer. I think we've got time for one more question. Yeah. Thank you. So the question is about when do I feel, or when does anybody feel that their business has actually become successful? And I'll be very honest with you. I hope I've been very honest so far, so I'll answer that question very honestly as well. The truth is, when most people go into business, they go into business to make money. That's the truth. I wouldn't have left the secure job that paid okay if I didn't think that I could make more money in business. So one factor for me is definitely about financial success. I'm nowhere near there at the moment. So that keeps me driven every day. But the other part of business, which is really important to me, having come from an educational background, is the impact and the difference that I can make. So Mixala chai isn't necessarily, yes, hopefully it makes people smile when they drink the chai and people like it, so it's making an impact. But for working parents, it's really about seeing people walk away from either a talk that I'm doing, a coaching session that I'm giving, or some training that I'm doing, having learned something they didn't know before. And coming up to you and saying, thank you, that was really worthwhile, I gained something from that. That sends me home with a massive smile on my face, and to me, that's a really, really important measure of success, and that also keeps me just as driven.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Amit, really valuable insights, and we thank you very much for your public speaking skills, which are very attuned. Thank you. Without further ado, we move on to this time one of our own. Brenda, you may have come across Brenda if you have had need to speak to either a member of the welfare team or Brenda herself. But Brenda was the recipient of the Businesswoman of the Year prize. Since 2015, the awards had been recognising the greatest female entrepreneurs who make a real impact in their industry. And now Brenda works for ESL, but will share her experience willingly with us in respect of entrepreneurship. So.